Hello, hi guys, and welcome to the third webinar, my third webinar for the Young Entrepreneurs of England. First one was a month ago, second one a fortnight ago, third one today, fourth and final one in 2 weeks' time. And I believe after that, they are going to announce the winner of the 12-month free mentorship with me. You can enter that by finding the post on the Young Entrepreneurs of England grid, the Instagram grid. I believe it was on Sunday, the 23rd of January. That post, bring it up, follow my account, the Young Entrepreneurs of England account, and comment either your name or your business handle's name in the comments. That gets you in to the competition. So that's 12 months free mentorship with me. So today's webinar is all about systems and processes and the importance of systems and processes in your business. Before we begin, I always ask a few questions. So firstly, have you launched a business, let's say in the last 5 years or so, and you feel like a bit of a hamster in a wheel, okay, working very, very hard, but not really getting very far? Or are you thinking of launching a business and you're worried about the mechanism required to make the whole thing work? Or are you simply a one-person business and struggle with clarity, focus, and a routine set up for success? Well, finally, are you just simply interested in one of the main reasons that one business stays small, for example, for let's say a decade, 2 decades, and another explodes onto the scene and grows hugely in 3 to 5 years? If the answer to either or any of those questions is yes, then really the next sort of 40 to 50 minutes would be wisely invested in you learning about the importance of systems and processes, okay? So the outcomes and the aims of this session. So by the end of this session, I want you to have learned 6 things, okay? Number 1, why, simply why you need to systemize as much as possible any business from 1 person to 100 people, that, you know, any business in that size or more. 2, the best time to bring in systems and processes, okay? Number 3, how to actually design a new system or procedure. Fourthly, how to implement and roll this out. Number 5, how to maintain the new process and ensure it's stuck to. And then number 6, one of the biggest reasons for pushback. So the reason that often highly intelligent people push back on change in their business or in life in general, even when that change is designed to improve their lives and make things easier. So it's why they do it and how to mitigate that, okay? So the first 2 sessions were very sort of entrepreneurial, motivational. This really is a granular. This is for the real purists, the real business owners, and the people that actually want to run a business. Okay, this is getting into some quite sort of detailed information. So when we refer to people working hard, the visual that's created from the language used often relates to your head being down. Okay, head down in some books. My head's down, working hard. Eyes down, crack on. Okay, this sort of language. Do you ever remember hearing that from a teacher or maybe an old boss or a parent making you do your homework? We often refer to it at school and university, didn't we? And I've got my head down in a lot of work at the moment. I'm snowed under. Okay, really, it's those type of people that operate a business with their head down, doing the do for many years, that will see a stunt in the growth of the business. Okay, so as a leader, this session is all about really, when you can, replacing your head down duties, working in the business, and raising your eyes onto the horizon and looking as far as possible. Okay, so quick intro to me. So I know what you're all asking. If you've watched sessions 1 and 2, I've covered this, but some people come in and they wonder why anyone talking on the screen is a valid source of information. And I always wonder that these days as well. Okay, so why won't the next 50 minutes be a complete waste of time? Why am I the person to listen to in regards to that? As I said, I often take these things with a pinch of salt. there's a lot of online gurus around. There's a lot of people that have got some decent information, but it's regurgitated information from others that have actually done something. Okay, so I think it's important to remember, I'm not a professional speaker. I'm not a coach, right? I'm not an online guru. I've actually built a company. Me, my business partners, and the amazing team here have actually built a business, okay, that does millions and millions and millions of pounds a year, right? It's not regurgitated cover songs. It's the original masterpiece, I think, okay, of how these things are done. Okay. Now, we're not claiming to be experts. I've said that all along. But if you're going from 1 or 2 people to, let's say, 80, this is the information you want to learn. I learn from people that have got businesses of 500 or more, because that's where we want to go. Okay. So this is what I'm trying to get across. The highlights have been, I've been involved in the launch of 3 companies. We've hired in that time over 200 people. We've won the best company to work for in the whole country in our sector twice. We've won the UK's best learning and development program in the UK twice. Okay, previous winners include companies such as Lloyds Bank. We hit the milestone last year of £1 million a week in sales. That was in August. So we're far exceeding that now. This year we're forecast to hit 75 million in annual sales. And don't forget, this isn't a brag. This is fact. And a lot of people, when they say that they're good at something or they've achieved something, these days it's painted up as a brag. It's not. We're talking facts. And if those facts make people feel uncomfortable, then that's more on them. Okay. This all started with 2 laptops and 2 mobile phones, and it started in a cold garage. As I said in the last 2 sessions, we had to use fingerless gloves so we can make calls, type, but actually stay warm at the same time. We've been at the very, very, very beginning. Okay. So I understand some of the struggles that some of you are going through. Okay. So to go from a garage to where we are today, you can only imagine the hundreds, if not thousands, of system changes, process enhancements, procedures that we've had to bring in, designed and rolled out, the pain points we've encountered. Okay. To go from a garage to a corporate business, 80 heads, we're talking HR, marketing, sales, recruitment, promotions, databases, training, community engagement, ISO, carbon policies, mobile phone policies, social media policies. The list is endless. Okay. It's almost endless. In fact, it is endless, because once you get to the end of the list, the company's then a year older. It's grown so much, you have to go back to the beginning and start to redesign and enhance all of the processes again, due to the growth, because they're no longer fit for purpose. Okay. So I would say, as a company, we are experts at spotting the bottlenecks and things that cause problems in terms of speed of delivery, accuracy, fairness, costing too much money, and changing things for the benefit of either the team or the client, ideally both. Okay. And within that company of experts, I seem to have landed the title of Prince of Process, right? Which, yes, I am that boring guy. I am the one who pulls people up. I am the one who people roll their eyes when I walk into a room because things aren't being done properly. I'm the guy that's obsessed with how things are done, more often than not, over what's done in the end, which is something I'm working on. But as strange as that may sound, I like to know things done properly. Okay. Luckily, as a leadership team, we balance each other out quite nicely. And I'm lucky enough to work alongside probably one of the best leadership teams that any SME has got in the country. And they take a keen eye on the bottom line and the actual end result, thankfully. But any great business needs the boring one and my colleagues who are the exciting ones. Okay. So with me, and again, this isn't a brag, you've probably got the most process-driven person within one of the most process-driven companies in the country. Okay. This will be an exciting hour. Aren't you lucky? I'm happy to take the identity of Captain Boring if it means huge, aggressive growth, right? And we are one of the fastest growing companies in our sector. And I'm here to tell you that really it's mainly down to the investment in systems and processes, as well as the top team of 80 people we have operating those systems and processes every day. Okay, so you've all heard the analogy of working in your business or on your business. This session is all about working on the business, creating the machine, creating the mechanism, creating a platform for growth, a platform from which you can compete either locally or nationally, whatever your business model is, and win. Okay. It's taken us 10 years to create a platform. Okay. Now, everyone says, oh, you know, how amazing the company's done in the last 10 years. We haven't started. We've just built the platform. You can now watch us. You will watch us now over the next 5 years win, right? We will win nationally. You'll watch us disrupt every market that we're in. And we couldn't have done that 5 years ago. Okay. Our machine was good. It's the best we could make it at the time, but now we're driving a completely different car. And that is the analogy I want to use throughout this presentation. Okay. Imagine a Formula One team in a pit stop. You've got one driver and you've got 12 people making sure the car can go as quickly as possible. Okay. Now, a business, your F1 car won't win the race without the driver being you and your team and the people involved. Okay. The car itself and the engine are the systems and the process, the mechanisms, the procedures, which is what we're talking about today. And the petrol is the money and the finance. Okay. This session is all about the function of the engine and the car, changing it, fine-tuning it, tweaking it, testing it, tidying up as you go. And eventually you want this machine to run without your daily input is the ultimate goal. So when systemizing, you need to ask yourself, will what we're doing make the car go faster? Will this change that we're bringing in make it quicker, more efficient, greater clarity, greater communication, speed to market, remove the bottlenecks, quicker, faster, more cost effective? Right, what's the next big issue we're looking at? Where's the next big efficiency saving come from? Okay, that's systemizing. So why should you systemize your business, right? Well, the primary reason, and I'm going to be blunt, is that there are serious implications if you don't invest in your processes and your systems, right? You'll fail. The company will die. It will die. If you aren't growing and you aren't winning more customers week and week, day by day, making more sales, right? You'll eventually be eaten up by your competition, right? Now, don't forget, we operate in a capitalist framework, right? Whether you like it or not. In the Western world, this is capitalism. You and your business are owed nothing. Your customers, your clients, your team will be attracted away by another supplier of your goods and services eventually if you stand still and if you don't keep growing or evolving. So many people are setting up businesses because they just want to work the mornings or they want to spend more time with their family. That isn't going to wash because companies like ours, companies, the other aggressive SMEs will attract your staff. They'll attract your customers and clients. Now, if you've got a small team, even if you've got a large team, okay, they will sense the company is stagnating, maybe even before you do. Okay, there is no middle gear in entrepreneurship, forward or back. That's it. And you cannot grow by definition, and you cannot evolve, and you cannot survive without looking at the mechanism of the business. So if you're not doing this, you're going to stagnate. If you're stagnating, you're going to die. Right? It's essential to constantly invest in systems and processes. Now, when I say investment, that doesn't mean just throwing money at it. It doesn't have to be purely financial. For new startups and one-person companies out there, investment could also just mean time as a resource and your brain power and paying attention to something, right? You need to ask yourself the question, are you here to make up the numbers or are you here to win? Win week in, week out, month in, month out, win year after year, right? No winning companies are born or explode onto the market with just pure effort alone, right? That outbound effort has to fit into a machine. You have to be driving the right car. That F1 car needs you to step back and consciously tweak it at the end of each session or whatever. Okay. You've all heard the well-worn catchphrase, time is money. That's not necessarily true, but time is a resource. Okay. Time is a resource that can be used to generate more money or indeed be squandered in terms of the opportunity to make more money. Okay. Time is one of the biggest drivers when it comes to improving your systems and your processes. And I'm huge on habits. Okay. Now my brain works in terms of compound or repeated actions over time. I never just think of what I'm currently doing. I always think of what the scenario would be if my current action was repeated daily, let's say over a year or so. You know, it's a gift to think that way, but it's also a curse. I'm telling you that. As you can imagine, I sometimes drive myself absolutely crazy, but I use this way of thinking to positive effect for the business. A sentence that really makes me wince is when you hear someone operating either a business on their own or a certain part of a business. Oh, don't worry, it only takes me 10 minutes in the morning, it's fine. Right, that will keep me up at night, that sort of thought. Okay, now let's think about that. So I've got an example. Now, strip away a big company, think about a one-person business, solopreneur, that I think they're called these days. Now, if you're a one-person business and you reviewed a task that took you 10 minutes and you could reduce it with a bit of brain power down to 2, okay, so and eventually save yourself, let's say, 8 minutes a day, with either outsourcing it or thinking about the impact of removing it completely is another one, or maybe designing a spreadsheet so you're not doing daily calculations on something, or creating an automatic report so you're not manually reporting on something every day. Something like this, save yourself 8 minutes. Doesn't sound like much, right? But 8 minutes is 40 minutes a week. 40 minutes a week. That's 2,000 minutes a year, right? 34 hours, that's 4 days. That's 4 working days a year that you have saved by just putting some brain power to something and stepping back for 2 minutes or 2 hours. Now, you leave this little task on your to-do list for 5 years, and believe it or not, some people will stick their head in the sand for years when it comes to little habits that they've got going on, okay? But more on that later, right? If you do that for 5 years, you've wasted a month, a whole month, a full-time working month on something that could have been tweaked, changed, removed, or streamlined with 2 or 3 hours brain power 5 years ago, right? And that's powerful enough when you're just thinking about a company on their own. Let's take our company here, right? 8 minutes times 80 people times 5 days, 3,200 minutes a week, right? That's the equivalent of 4 months in time over a year. You take the average salary we pay here, which obviously I'm not going to disclose, but I can tell you that's tens of thousands of pounds in one single year. Over 5 years, astronomical, okay? So yes, we do systemize and change processes sometimes to save minutes or seconds here and there for this very reason. Don't forget, and I said this in the first 2 sessions, 99 people out of 100 would think you're crazy for changing something to find a 2-minute time saving for either yourself or your team, right? Not you. You are a top 1% thinker, and you'll end up getting the results if you back that with action of the top 1% in the country. You don't think or act like the mediocre masses, okay? Now, we've talked time, but there are lots of other reasons to improve your systems and processes, okay? Increased growth, team engagement, client retention, access to funding, customer satisfaction, remote working at the moment is a big one. Legislation changes, reallocation of resources. If they're being not spent wisely, you can move them, aid further growth, access to information, quicker, smarter, stronger, leaner, more efficient, right? Think of someone molding something. How can you mold this business to be quicker, smarter, stronger, leaner, more efficient? Now, the ideal eventual goal is to have everything documented and reviewed regularly, right? Every process, every procedure, okay? An American football team would call it a playbook, their playbook. Could you go on holiday for 2 weeks and with your small team or your large team and come back to a great looking business, okay? Increase revenue, happy, engaged team, if you've got one. Or would the whole thing have gone to shit, okay? If you went away for let's say a week, would it take you up to 6 weeks of your time to get it back on track if you just went away for even a week or 2 weeks, okay, to bring everything back on point? If the answer to that is yes, your systems and processes aren't working, or you haven't got any, right? When you got into business, or when you will get into business, right, do you not feel that eventually you're going to deserve some time off? Is it sustainable to consider this thing that you've created needs your constant input daily for a decade, right? Or 2 decades, okay? Now, if you're a parent like me, I've got 2 boys, under 2 years old, one at 1, one at 2. In the first few years, you know it's going to be tough. You know there's going to be a lack of sleep. You know you're going to be dealing with emotional, confusing situations. You know a lot of what you're doing is learning on the job, right? Experiencing issues that you haven't experienced before. Very much like entrepreneurship. But you know, eventually, hopefully, one day as a parent, all being well with the child, one day they'll get up and they'll dress themselves. One day they'll feed themselves. Okay. One day they'll put themselves to bed, clean their own teeth. Okay. It's the same as a business. You need one day your business to one day mature and grow up and allow you time away, even in short bursts, to make the whole thing more sustainable. This is done through putting in the correct procedures and systems to both run the business and ensure everyone within the business knows exactly what their role is and what's expected of them and how to operate any software or tools or anything they need to carry out their job well. Okay. So that's why I could have talked about that for 2 hours. Right? If you don't do it, you really do limit yourself. I mean, the obvious one, you know, people want to travel more, people want to work remotely. If you haven't got the systems and processes in place, you can't work remotely, which is a huge one at the moment. So when is the best time to systemize? Okay, really, before you launch is the short answer, but there is a caveat to that. So ideally, you should be thinking about systems and processes long before you launch. Writing your detailed plan, researching the possible pitfalls and their solutions before you press the button and take the leap. Sure. In the real world, though, we know things don't really work like that. And you will encounter and should expect bottlenecks and blockages in the mechanism of the business in the early days, right? And as you grow, almost constantly, you'll be looking to amend and improve things to make sure the machine works. And I would advise that probably from about year 2 onwards, okay? Now, from year 2 onwards, you need to adopt the mindset of continual improvement. As I said, time saving, efficiency saving, money saving, you know, constantly be looking for the next improvement. Now, I say year 2 onwards because I really think in year 1, you need to just do the do, okay? Year 1, you need to be creating a bit of a mess, right? Yes, you pre-planned. Yes, you've researched. Light's gone off. And yes, you've detailed this all in your plan, but things will crop up, okay? And really, my advice is, unless they're going to be fatal to the business or you're completely doing irreparable damage to your reputation, make a note of what the issue is, right? What the bottleneck is, and tackle it later, probably after year 1. My advice for year 1 goes against all my advice from year 2 onwards, right? I would urge you in year 1 to just do the thing, okay? Get going. Otherwise, it's analysis paralysis a little bit. It becomes a paper shuffling exercise. I've been guilty of that in the past. Just do it. Now, what's going to crash your F1 car or bring it to a halt on the side of the track in year 1 is either you, the driver, or the petrol running out. So either your driving knowledge, your knowledge of how to run a business, which you can brush up on and learn from others, or the petrol running out, the money running out. Okay, it's not really going to be what's under the bonnet. Under the bonnet can come year 2 onwards. Okay, I don't want people so obsessed with the how in year 1 that they forget to do the do. Okay, you need 12 months of trading. You need 12 months of data. Once you've got 12 months under your belt and the car is spluttering but kind of moving along the road and you've got going, that's the time to start fine tuning, right? Pick a topic a month to fix. Within within year 2, the end of year 3, you're really starting to get somewhere, and the growth has happened all the way through as well. Okay. From that moment, from year 2 onwards, you probably catch the bug for it. Maybe not. I certainly have caught the bug for constantly improving things. And if you don't, you've got no choice, really. You need someone that has caught the bug for it. To go from good to great, from a Skoda to a McLaren, you've got to constantly fine tune. Okay. Now, if there's just one of you, you might find that, working on the engine has come at the very end of a long day of driving the car. right? That's the harsh reality. You've got no choice. You have to find time to step away from the operational side of the business to work on the engine, okay? The minute you can give away more of your operational in the business tasks and replace that time with system design and rollout, the quicker you'll grow, okay? So always try and buy the time of others and replace what you're doing within the company at each time, each time that's possible. If there's 2 business partners or more, right, over time you'll get to know who likes to deal with people more, who likes to deal with sales more, who likes to deal with software and the more sort of operational side. Where there's only 2 or maybe 3 or 4, you'll naturally have to do bits of everything, all 4 of you or all 2 of you, because there's not that many people of you, but over time you'll naturally gravitate to one or the other, and I think that's natural, and you can support that. Now, businesses go through periods of slower growth, a quiet period of the year, let's say for a seasonal business, a supply issue, a quiet day, God forbid a recession, a pandemic, but not all's lost, okay? This is your chance to really lift the lid and make improvements, right? Average businesses encounter a pandemic and they start to panic, right? They make huge cuts, big swings in directions, pivots as they're called. And when you can't look out to clients and sales, look inwardly, okay? Our huge growth in 2021 here and now into 2022 was totally down to our actions during the pandemic. The whole of the country worked under the same conditions, right? Some companies in the same industry, dealing with the same clients, barely survived, right? And some thrived. Why? Right? Well, I know what we did. We took our opportunity, right? We didn't just sit there and panic, right? We improved almost every process we had. We tightened up system use. The application of software improved. We upskilled our team. We rolled out online training. We didn't really furlough many people, only people that really needed it, wanted to be furloughed, right? We spent a year building our platform, and like an arrow being slowly drawn back, bang, okay? We were like a coiled spring, right? But then again, as a company, really, we're used to economic downturns as a business, our business. We actually launched our business during the deepest, darkest recession since World War II, right? Now, that wasn't by design. We didn't time it that way. We just literally had no choice. We'd run out of runway where we were. We had to move. It was the recession that made us move. People called us crazy, right? And maybe, I suppose, maybe we were a little bit set up in just after the housing crash, 2010, 2011. But as a result, we created a great business, right? Now, as strange as it sounds, we weren't distracted by a huge amount of sales or placements or candidates or clients. We worked very hard on the systems and the processes. We even had procedure in place just for 2 people, okay? We had a procedure if you wanted to take a day off. We had a procedure for this, procedure for that. For 2 people, 4 people, 6 people, anyone looking in would have thought we were like OCD crazy. But no, okay? We were doing it to be scalable, right? It gives you the time and the excuse in a downturn to work on the business, building the infrastructure, the processes, the systems, so that everything works efficiently and effortlessly for when things ramp up, okay? A company that starts in boom times quite often can go pop when the sales dip off. It's like a house of cards, because they haven't built the infrastructure. They've spent the whole time servicing the client, sell. Okay, we did it from the ground up, very, very, the opposite way. And proof to this is, strangely enough, some of the best businesses were actually set up in recessions over the past however many years. Okay, WhatsApp, recession-based business. FedEx, Airbnb. Going back even further here, IBM, recession. Microsoft, set up in a recession. Okay, it's like buying stocks and shares when a company is struggling and waiting for the ramp up. Okay, you do the opposite of what the masses are doing. Rather than buying at the peak, the stocks and shares at the peak of the market, which is, a company built really as a house of cards, as I said. I think there's a real lesson there. So the most important question we asked ourselves the whole time in that garage and in the couple of years after is this scalable? We knew we wanted to get to 100 people, okay, eventually. Will this software, this procedure, will what we're doing now get us to 100 people? We weren't building a procedure for 2 people, for 4 people. We were building it for 100, but there just happened to be 4 people there at the time, okay? The business has changed, obviously, a huge amount in that time, but the culture, excuse me, the culture of constant improvement, time and efficiency savings, it was woven into the fabric of the business from day one. Okay. Now we call this company, we celebrated our 10th year last summer. So we call ourselves 10 years old, but really we're actually 10 versions of a 1-year-old company. If you think about it like that, when we celebrate each birthday, quite often our office has changed, our systems have changed, our departments have changed, the reporting's changed, the software, HR, legals, all changed. Okay. If you're watching this from the UK or Europe, you may have heard of a sitcom in the 80s and 90s called Only Fools and Horses, right? And there was a character called Trigger. Now he had a famous joke. He was a road sweeper. Okay. He said, my broom has lasted me 20 years. It's only had 17 new heads and 14 new handles. Okay. That's our company, right? Our company is that broom. Any company that evolves and changes and systemizes and keeps renewing is that broom, okay, being replaced the whole time. It's only the brand and the people, because we don't really lose anyone that we don't want to anyway. It's the brand and the people that remain, okay? Everything else changes over time for the better, okay? Everything. Right. So about 3/4 of the way through, you'll be pleased to know. And now we've come on to how to systemize. How do you systemize? So systems come really from pain points, right? They come from identifying and rectifying mistakes for the benefit of the customer and the team. Okay. As I said at the top of the webinar, my mind works in the context of repeated actions, right? 1 mistake, 2 mistakes, isolated, no problem. What happens if that mistake keeps repeating? What happens if it repeats only 5 times this year, right? What happens if it's 1% of our placements end up with this mistake in it? That's too many. 2 is too, 1 is what? One you need because you learn from it, it highlights the problem. 2, too many, okay? So you need to change the process if it's going to be a process-driven improvement. So questions you should ask yourself. Number 1, will this help delight your customer or client? Or will this help delight your team, whose job it is to delight the customer or client? Okay. All comes back to those 2 parties. Okay. You need to delight them both, ideally. It's really tough to foresee issues because you are trying to grow the business as well as reacting to the last issue or the system fix that you've just done. Okay. So it's only really when you get to a certain size and capacity that you can be more proactive and anticipate problems. So if your startup phase or pre-5 years, you're going to be reactive, right? You need to accept that and forgive that. Even large companies, blue chip companies react to problems. Okay. But after a certain amount of time, if you can afford to replace yourself more and more and more, you will have the luxury of a more proactive approach. Okay. So when you reach the holy grail of like a proactive system change, okay, you can tell I get, we're in the granular detail now. You're dealing with a pre-mortem, okay, a pre-mortem, a review or analysis before the issue has caused any disruption or too much disruption, pre-mortem. When you are reactive to system change requirements, okay, you're dealing with a post-mortem after the issue, okay, and you really need to accept that a particular pain point or issue has played out and maybe harmed something along the line. Now, the vast majority of system changes are post-mortem, okay, because of the way that things run. So let's just look at how to implement that kind of system change, right? Now, number 1, okay, so there's 8, I've drawn up 8 steps here and a few questions that you need to be asking yourself at the end of these 8 steps. Number 1, identify clearly the issue that has occurred. clearly the issue that has occurred. Okay. Number two, straight away, once you've identified the issue, bring in team members that are involved either in that issue or the ones that in other teams that could experience potentially the same issue, right? So they feel part of identifying the problem and then the solution from the very, very beginning. Okay, this really helps with later rollout. Okay, more on that shortly. Number three, identify clearly the ideal outcome. The ideal outcome, right? Number four, ask again lots of questions of the team, right? Canvass their opinion. They don't want to feel dictated to, so go back to them. Five, right? You then work back from the perfect outcome. Okay. So number six, doesn't have to be fancy, right, or anything like that. I prefer a big whiteboard. In our boardroom, I'm in one of the meeting rooms at the moment. In our boardroom, we've got one whole wall, which is huge as a whole whiteboard. Okay. But a pen and paper will do it. It doesn't, don't start bringing up fancy software. A pen and paper will do this, right? Now, that's how all systems in our business are designed, or on a whiteboard or a pen and paper, right? Now, number seven, some people list the steps back from the ideal outcome, which is fine. What I like to do is I'm very visual, as you can probably imagine. So what I do is I draw down on a bit of paper or the whiteboard the diagram of how this new thing's going to play out, right? X team needs to speak to Y team. They need to do that before Tuesday morning. On Tuesday afternoon, an automatic email can go to team C. Team C speaks to team D. Right, and you start to draw out this map of what happens. You can pinpoint in that map or in that diagram the previous pain points and how they occurred and how it's going to be different this time. Once you've got that diagram of what's happening, arrows and emails and auto this and auto that, or however you want it to run and whatever you're looking to do, you then can take your pen and paper and you can list back the steps back from the ideal outcome all the way to number one, to where you are currently, right? And finally, again, once you've got this, show it to the team, or at least the most senior members or the ones most closest to this system change. Ask their opinion. What do you think? Don't forget this used to happen. How can we circumnavigate that? Does this person need to be involved? Do we need to outsource this anymore? Etc. Etc. Ask for their opinion on the improvements that you've suggested. Okay, and tweak. They're not going to persuade you to wholesale change it, I'm sure, but any little tweaks, welcome them. Okay. So there's some questions that you need to be asking yourself about this new system change. You need to be aware of the answers before deciding to commit to it. Okay. Remember, this could be a very small tweak in the process or a major overhaul to how the whole business operates. Okay. So number one, are there fewer steps in this process than last time, or are there more? Okay. How replicable, I knew I'd get that wrong. Is it easy to replicate? Let's put it that way. Is it easy to replicate this process? Can it be performed over and over again? Over and over again, okay? How duplicatable is the process? So the first one, can we replicate it? The same thing over and over again. Can we duplicate the process? So if one person is doing it over and over again, can a second person, third person, 100 people all be doing it over and over again? Or in the process, is there just one machine? Is there just one license? Is there just one login? Or can more than one person do it? Okay. 4, what is the cost of implementing this new process? Are there new hires needed? Are there redundancies needed? We've never made anyone redundant. Just to let you know, we're not that business. But some companies will. Some companies will make redundancies when they're changing their processes. Is there new software needed? Is there a new supplier needed? Right? What is the setup? Add that all up. What is the setup cost of this new process? Right? Now, can that be mitigated over time by the cost saving of the whole thing playing out over a period of 5 years? Right? If the answer is no, you need to redesign it somewhere along the line. Right? And finally, who will you need in the business to help you roll this out, right? The training and the enforcement of the new process. Who will you need? You can't just do it on your own. Typically, if there's more than, let's say, 6 or 7 of you, you're going to need at least one other person. When you've got 80, you need a group of people to champion this change, right? So rolling it out. So the most important step is an effective rollout, okay? All of the design, the pain points, the thinking time, the interviewing the team members, all that sort of thing will be a complete waste of time if there's a confused rollout of it, okay? It will cause more damage than just leaving a slightly faulty system as it is, right? You don't want confusion. If there's more than, let's say, 3 or 4 of you, the whole success rate comes down to the internal PR of the project, right? Will people be on board or not? Don't forget, you will have engaged opinion the whole way through the analysis and the design of the new process, right? So people will feel heard. They will feel they've had their say, even if it's gone against what their ideal preferences were. They've been heard out, which usually, for the average human being, ticks their box. Okay, so hopefully you've got bought in from minute one. You've got buy-in from minute one. Sorry, I would always choose a team member or at least two team members closest to the issue, right? The team leader or the senior person of the team where the main change is taking place. I'd also then choose the person of the biggest influence, maybe in the office or in the business or in that section of the business, right? If you've got more than 15 or 20 people to choose from, you choose the one that people generally go to for advice, right? The mouthy one, the one with the loud opinion, right? You're all thinking of that person now, aren't you? You've got someone in mind. Get that person and get the 1 or 2 people closest to them to the rollout and buddy them up. Okay, you're going to need the mouthy ones to roll it out and to win hearts and minds. You're going to need the experts to come in from that angle as well. To prevent pushback, right? If it's a small change, a quick change, all-star female, or just locally, you can roll this thing out. If it's going to cost anyone any sort of brain power to think about a different habit, you really need a training session or a meeting to roll this out and to prevent pushbacks. Very, very important that this is hit home, okay? Things in this area are changing. Here's why, here's how. Be very, very clear. Very clear. You back it up in writing afterwards, right? As I said, confusion as to what's happening is worse than a slightly off-kilter process just carrying on, okay? Don't forget that. So in this meeting, you need to include, so let's say you're going to have a training session, you're rolling out a new process, new bit of software. Number 1, highlight the issue, right? You talk about the issue, you talk about why it occurs and how it occurs, okay? Number 3, the result and impact that issue is having on the business, as I said, the customer or client or the team. Number 4, what this process change will solve, okay? And number 5, and most importantly, what's in it for them. They know it's going to help the business. They know it's going to help the customer. They know it's going to help the team in general. But what's in it for them? Why should they change this process, right? So you say things like, Johnny, this is going to save you 2 hours a week. Sarah, that headache that you talk about with regards to operating this on a Thursday afternoon, that's gone. That's gone now. This is easier, this is quicker, this has been removed completely, etc., etc. Okay, that's 5 things there before we've even talked about what the new process is. That's 5. That's winning hearts and minds before we've even then come on to probably what is the last 10 minutes of the meeting, the actual thing, right? So half of it is a PR exercise internally. Right, so maintaining the new process or the habit creation. So humans are creatures of habit, we know that. Some really don't like change at all, okay? So more on this shortly. So you have 2 options really when it comes to ensuring the new process is adhered to, right? Nothing worse than half the company doing it and half the company not doing it. Causes issues, accusations, confusion, etc. Now you've all heard of the carrot and the stick. Okay, so there's 2 ways to move a donkey, right? 1, you hit them with a stick. or two, you tempt them along the road with the promise of a carrot, right? Now you can choose to enforce with the stick or incentivize with the carrot, but it really comes down to the culture of your business, right? Personally, and our culture here, we always choose the carrot. We always choose to incentivize and reward the behavior that we want to encourage. Okay, so you could, so an example could be you could call a meeting and say, look, right, team, I know we've got new payment software coming in next week. We know, as discussed, it's going to save us 45 seconds per transaction, right? Which will make all of your days far easier and far more simple. However, in the meantime, I know it looks a bit funny. I know it's alien. I know it's not as simple as just using what we've already done. It's going to be a pain to learn in the short term, but long term, it's going to make things much easier. So I've come up with something. Once you've completed 100 transactions, or you could say the team members that have completed 100 transactions before the end of next Friday using the new system will receive X in their pay packet, a bonus, or I'll bring you in McDonald's on the Friday, or we'll go to lunch, we'll go to Pizza Express, I'll get you a Starbucks, something. Okay, depending on the levels of what you do in the finances involved, etc. Now, it's little levers like that that will drive behavior change. Okay, incentivizing the first 100 actions of anything will mean that by the 101st, the habit is formed. Okay, you've tempted them over the threshold of confusion and debate in their mind. What am I doing this for? God, this isn't. Oh no, it's different logins. You've got them over that headache with the promise of a Pizza Express or whatever, however your business would run, whatever would seem natural to incentivize people. Okay, and then from there it's habit. Now, dealing with pushback. One of the biggest risks to implementing a new system or process is the pushback from your team, right? If it's just you, one person business, right, it will come down to whether you're strict enough with your day and your processes and your way of working to carry out what you've decided that you're going to do, right? People doing or telling themselves what they said they're going to do is a problem that's lasted since the dawn of time, right? I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to start the gym on Monday, etc., etc. Right, we've all been there. So that's your own challenge, okay? Essentially, there are two types of people in the world, right? One that embraces change and uncertainty and marches towards it, open arms. There's not many of them, but they do it. They do exist. Then the other, I'd say half, the other 90% of those that actively run in the opposite direction, okay? It's important for people to know who is on their team and who on their team is likely to be which of those characters, okay? It's also important for people to recognize their own personal traits and to be honest with themselves as to which type of person they are in that scenario as well, okay? Now, a little true to life analogy here to hit home my point. I've talked about this before, talked about it on my social media. It's a great analogy. It's a true to life analogy. Take the example of the cow and the buffalo, right? Now, both animals are from the same subspecies of animal. Genetically, very, very similar animals, right? Some of their behaviors are very, very similar as well, by the way, until either animal senses a storm. Now, that is where the similarities end, right? And you can imagine on the open plains of America, you can imagine plenty of storms, hurricanes, twisters, all this sort of thing. When a cow senses a storm, right, or cows plural, they huddle together, they roam around, they seek shelter, they panic in the end, and they use up a lot of energy, and they end up running away from the storm. Now, a cow's not going to outrun a twister, is it? Or a hurricane, essentially. So what happens is, by the time it arrives, they're absolutely exhausted. They're going out of their mind, and the storm eventually catches up. Whether they survive or not, lap of the gods, right? But they're often weary and they sometimes collapse, they sometimes die, right? The buffalo, again, genetically very similar, but instinctively, when the buffalo senses a storm, it does something very different. It doesn't wait for the herd. It doesn't wait for his buffalo buddy. It doesn't do anything like that. It singularly, altogether, depending on where they are at that particular moment, the buffalo charges towards the storm. They know it's coming their way. They know their objective is to get through the other side as quickly as possible. Okay. Now there are stories of the storms slightly changing direction or whatever. The buffaloes change their direction to hit it head on, right? So they're constantly looking to hit this thing head on. They're constantly looking to go through the middle of it if possible. Now cows are technically in danger and discomfort a hell of a lot longer than the buffalo. By avoiding the short-term discomfort, their actions lead to longer duration of the pain. The buffalo, right, sacrifices short-term pain for longer-term comfort, and they find safety more quickly than the cow. Right? Now that is a great analogy. Right? I think we've all been guilty of being the cow, and sometimes we've been brave enough to be the buffalo when it comes to issues and things that we know we have to sort out. But in your company, right, how many buffaloes do you have? How many cows do you have? Right? 40% of any decisions you think you make, they're not actually the result of any decision at all. It's actually a habit. Now, people don't like to induct new habits because it brings decisions to the conscious brain. Okay. So if you've ever driven a manual car after years of driving an automatic, there are some conscious things that you have to do in the first few minutes of driving that manual car again, right? Before it quickly gets ingrained into how you drive. The quicker you can ingrain the new process and system into the habitual nature of your company, the quicker the pain period is over, right? But why do highly intelligent people push back on change? Why do they stick their head in the sand when they know something needs fixing? Light gone off again. They procrastinate and they run from things that they know will be painful in the short term, but will mean that they enjoy longer term comfort, more growth, an easier life, more money, more happiness further down the line. It's one of life's tough questions. There's no simple answer. But what I can tell you is this: it's usually the person that complains about the problem and the result of the problem the most, without offering a solution usually, that then pushes back hardest and fastest on the new software, the new hire, the new section of the website, the whatever it is that you brought in to solve that problem or that process issue. Why? I think some people just love to complain. They either are worried that it's going to remove their ticket to complain, or their natural state, their natural sense of comfort is to be aggrieved, is to be a state of being wronged, is to simply moan. Okay, it's their preferred, most comfortable state, right? Now, I would say that we're lucky enough not to have any of those people in this company, right? But then luck was not involved in that. Okay, we hired and we've replaced on this very factor, and you should too as well. I'm guessing most of you are operating what's still classed as a startup. If you're young, the young entrepreneurs of England, your business might only be 5 years old, or no more than 5 years old, and that means any team members that you have taken on have signed up to work in a company that will no doubt see lots of change, rapid growth, and things like that over the next few years. So they should be set up for big process changes and system changes. And if they can't grow and change with you, right, you need to think long and hard about whether you need them around you. Okay. Finally, if you don't have a team, okay, if it's just you and you want your business to stay just you, that's cool, of course. And please don't ignore the need to systemize and process your company. Okay. If we're looking to save 2 minutes of time or 10 minutes of everyone's day out there, that's only a very short percentage of the overall output, of the daily output in terms of people hours in the company. But if it's 10 minutes of your time, the percentage is a lot bigger. Okay, so it's very, very important that you do this as well. It's also about keeping you as productive as possible and about making your solo role as enjoyable as possible. Okay, my advice to you would be about routine, and just as important as systems and processes, get your routine for success set up. Best thing you can do is keep a not to-do list. We've all heard of to-do lists. Keep a not to-do list. Scribble things down in the moment when you start to do things that aren't productive. Okay, the moment that the number of times you're writing them down, so less scrolling, less texting, less reading emails and reacting to emails individually as they come in, that sort of thing. Okay, you'll be more conscious. The more times you write it down, not to-do list, not to-do list, the more conscious for these actions you'll be, and subconsciously you'll stop doing them more quickly. Okay, and improving your system and in turn your routine. Right, we've come to the end. I've talked to you long enough. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Please remember, you can win 12 months mentorship with me. We won't talk systems and processes again during that 12 months unless you really want me to. Well, we will. I'm lying. Of course we will. But I'm not going to go and bore you with it like I have today. You can tell I'm here to have questions thrown at me. You can add me on Instagram. You can ask me any questions. I'll reply to every DM. But if you wanted to win 12 months mentorship with me, go to the Young Entrepreneurs of England Instagram grid. I think there's a couple of mentorship posts up now where you can make sure you follow me, make sure you're following them, and comment your handle, your name or your business handle in the comment section of either of those posts. I don't know the date of the second one, but I know the first one was Sunday, the 23rd of January. Okay, so make sure you do that. Winner is announced, I believe, in early March, and I'll see you in 2 weeks for the last session. Thank you.